So it's Sunday and it's time to update my spreadsheet for my high yield ETFs, but I'm also going to take a look at PLTY and we're going to see where it currently sets by taking a look at PLTR. And we're going to see if it's setting at any kind of resistance or at a support line just to get a better idea. Hello my friends, this is Legend. So as I stated today, we are going to take a look at PLTY. We're going to find out if it's currently sitting at a support line. And the way we're going to do that is to evaluate PLTR. And then afterwards, we're going to go through, update my spreadsheet, enter in all the distributions that we did earn this week. And I did notice that a lot of those distributions did increase in value. Now, not by a whole lot, but they did go up. And I'll take those little wins when I get them. So if you enjoy this type of content, please make sure to hit that like button as it does help my channel out. So let's just start right off here with PLTY first before we get into the distributions and the high yield ETF spreadsheet. So on PLTY, you can see overall it has been somewhat moving up for a good bit. But since this year, it has been kind of coming down. And this is about the start of this year right here. And you can see it has been moving down. But since about February, we have seemed to trade sideways right here. So are we sitting at a support that it's bouncing off of? Well, let's go and take a look at PLTR to see if we can find out if there is a support on PLTR that is supporting PLTY. All right, so here we are looking at PLTR. And this is that same area we were looking at. And if I want to compare that with PLTY, notice how these candles are running here where we are trading sideways and then moving down a little bit. And if I flip it over to PLTY, you can see it looks very similar, right? So as PLTR is moving up or down, PLTY is moving up or down along with it. But to do the evaluation, we really need to look at that underlying. And that underlying for PLTY is PLTR. So as you can see, I've got some lines drawn in here, and this purple line right here, that is setting pretty close to that bottom right there, and we can bump it up just a hair right there. So it looks like it's coming down and it's touching roughly this 126.23 right here. And it did bounce off of it and we've come down, and it looks like we again have come down to that area and bounced again. So could we be seeing a bit of a support right here? And it looks like on a short term, that is a bit of a support. But is there something previous to this point that shows us this was a previous support or resistance line? And to do that, let's zoom out. So let's shrink that up a little bit and let's zoom out. And we're looking at this purple line right here. And just in case that's a little hard to see, I'm going to go ahead and thicken that line up. There we go. Hopefully that's a little bit easier to see on the video. And we're going to slide right on back. And you can see, looks like we were kind of hanging around this line right here. And then we go on back here to around February of last year. And that's 2025, right? But look at this right here. We did come up, hit that same line, and came back down. So that was a good resistance line right there. Pretty strong, right? Because when it came up, it touched that line, it got rejected, and it was rejected hard, right? Because it did come all the way back down here and started moving back up to test it once again right here. And then the earnings came out and it just fell back down, right? After earnings, but then started moving back up. And you could say we did break that line right here. And I'm going to zoom in for the people in the back. And you can see we did break it, but then we were kind of bouncing off of it and then hanging around on that line. So it could not make up its mind whether or not it was going to be on the top side or the bottom side of that support/resistance line until right here. And then we did break it and we started moving on up. And that's where we were starting to move up and away from that line. And we did. We moved all the way up to looks like $190 per share on Palantir before starting to move back down. And as we were moving down and moving back up, it's somewhat trading within a range, right? Now that's a heck of a wide range, but it was still trading within this range. And you can see that's exactly what it was doing until it finally did break down below it and came back down to retest that previous support / resistance line. So that's kind of interesting, right? It did come down, it did test it, popped it back up, come back down again right there and tested it once again, and it's popped back up. Now, if it keeps coming down to test this line, it's basically going to be chipping away at all those buyers. And if it continues to do that, it will eventually eat up all those buyers and it will eventually break on down. But if it can continue to move on up, then that just means that the buyers are in control and we're starting to move back up. So for now, looks like roughly this 125, 126 area, that's a pretty good support line. And that's what we're going to call this line here for Palantir. And you know what that means for PLTY. If that is a support line for Palantir, then we move over to PLTY. We can look at roughly that same area for that line. And that was right there, bouncing right off of this. So this $35 line right here could be a bit of a support for PLTY. And we're using that because Palantir is showing that same support right here. Because if Palantir is going to be supported off of this line, so will PLTY. Now that does not mean that PLTY is going to move on up, and it does not mean Palantir is going to move on up. But it does seem that there is a bit of a support line right here in this area. So I wanted to point that out as I thought that was pretty interesting. And anytime that you're going to evaluate these high yield ETFs, you really have to evaluate the underlying, because PLTY, MSTY, CONY, and all those are only reacting to the underlying's move. So if Coinbase, Palantir, MSTY, and so forth are moving up, then those high yield ETFs are going to move up as well. But if they start breaking down, you know exactly what's going to happen to those high yield ETFs. They're going to break on down as well. So that's what I'm seeing for PLTY. I'm seeing a bit of a support there because Palantir is showing a support right there in that area. So now let's just go ahead and let's update my spreadsheet. Let's enter in those distributions and let's find out if my account is showing any more red and what my new real price per share for each of my high yield ETFs are. And here we are on my high yield ETF spreadsheet. And you can see just off of my summary page, it's showing that CONY is still down. Surprise, surprise, right? We knew that. It's been down and it's down a good bit. So that one's going to take a bit of time to get turned around. ULTY is down, but not by much. We're only down about 1.3% on ULTY at the current moment. And I have not entered in any of my distributions yet. So these numbers should all drop a little bit when I enter that distribution, as that will help to lower my real price per share. But scrolling on over, outside of CONY and ULTY being red, I have WYMAX, which is still red, but that is it. Those are the three currently that are red. So those are the three that I still have to work on. But I am waiting for Bitcoin to level off, find the bottom, and then hopefully start to recover before I go and start putting any more money into these high yield ETFs. But even if I'm not putting more money in it, they are still paying me back my capital that I have invested. So each week I'm still getting paid back my capital, and eventually, just like I did on PLTY and MSTY, they will eventually, hopefully, get to paid off status to where then those distributions that I am earning will be free and clear. So if you'd like to get a copy of this spreadsheet, come on over, join my Discord where you can get a copy of this spreadsheet so that you can enter in your own high yield ETFs, track your own real price per share so that you can know where you really stand in each of your positions. Are you red and under, or are you actually green and up? And you won't know this unless you're tracking that real price per share. So come on over, join, we'd love to have you. So we're going to start right off looking at CONY. And to get to the individual sheets, of course, as you can see, when you hover over the ticker, it does give a little pop-up for a hyperlink that does take you straight to that individual sheet. So you can easily jump straight to that individual sheet without having to scroll across the bottom of the screen and find which one's which. It's nice and simple from your summary page just to hover over that ticker you want to go to, click that hyperlink, and it takes you straight there. So let's start off with CONY, and there we are, straight on CONY. Nice, easy, and fast. And I've already entered in the distribution amounts for each of these just to help speed the video along. And as you can see, we did earn a bit more on CONY. As I stated at the very beginning, it's not a tremendous amount more, but they are up. We went from 29 cents to 31 cents. But like I said, it's the small wins, and I don't mind the small wins because they too add up eventually to a nice big win. So how many shares do I have of CONY? Well, I have not put any more money into any of these ETFs because Bitcoin has been coming down, and I want Bitcoin to find its support, level off, and then start moving up before I get back into trying to manage some of these red ETFs. But I earned 31 cents for this one, and I have 175 shares. So I enter in my 175 shares into this field right here. And when I hit enter, it will change my real price per share and recalculate all of this information. And all this information is also available on that summary page that we were just looking at. So you don't even have to go to the individual sheets to get the information. You can see it all straight there on that front page of that summary page, so you can quickly see which ones that you need to focus on, which ones you want to focus on, and even just where you currently set for each of your high yield ETFs. So having 175 shares at that 31 cents, that's going to adjust my real price per share from 42.07 down to 41.76. Now with CONY at 28.10, I'm still down. And if I were to sell CONY at the current price, yes, I will take a loss. And it will be a loss of $2,389. But you'll see as we go, my wins are outweighing my losses. Moving forward to PLTY. And on PLTY, we earned 39 cents this week. And PLTY is paid off. So you can see it's a minus 59 cents for my real price per share, meaning that's how much I'm actually in the good. I'm beyond the amount that I actually spent in capital. As you can see, I had $22.44 in capital spent, and I've earned in distributions $22.66 so far. So therefore, that difference is about 59 cents per share because I have 37 shares. And that is the amount that I am above the amount of capital that I have spent. So that's why this cell is now green, and it shows it as a minus because we are under the zero. That's a great thing to see. So I have a total of 37 shares. I enter my 37 shares here, and that 39 cents at 37 shares is going to lower that real price per share of minus 59 cents down to minus 98 cents. Very nice, right? So now if I were to sell all my shares at that current price of $38.41, I would make $1,457. So that is how much I'm clearing. Very nice gains on PLTY. Moving to NVDY. We made 11 cents on NVDY, and that's up from the 9 cents of last week. So this one too is up. I have a total of 71 shares. So my real price per share of $11.55 now drops down to $11.43. And therefore that current price of $13.30 means if I had to sell all my shares, and that's all 71 shares, at that current price, then I will make $132. For ULTY, we went from 43 cents of last week to 47 cents this week. So this one too is up. How many shares do I have? I have 56 shares. Therefore, my real price per share of $35.67 now becomes $35.19. And that just about dropped us down below that current price. We got really close. That current price being $35.08 means that if I were to sell my shares at that current price, I will take a loss, but it will be a small loss. It's only $6 loss right here. So this one, I am very close and I am still moving along with it. But if ULTY can start trading sideways and start moving up, then I eventually can get ahead of this one. For MSTY, we earned 30 cents. I have 95 shares, and this one too is paid off, and I've got a minus $7.72, and therefore those 95 shares at 30 cents is going to lower that real price per share down to $8.02. Very, very nice. Love it. Bringing it on down. And therefore for this one, that's $762.26 right here. Means that is how much that I can still use to buy more shares if I so choose and still keep this one in the paid off status. The estimated number of shares at that current price would be roughly about 33 shares. And that is an estimated number of shares because the price of MSTY, along with any other stock or ETF, does move minute to minute, right? For SMCY, we earn 12 cents. I have 300 shares. Therefore, my real price per share of $7.69 now comes down to $7.56. And if I were to sell all those shares, I would make $89. For AMDY, we earned 30 cents, and that's up from 27 cents of last week. And that is a total of 164 shares I do own. So my real price per share of $28.98 now becomes $28.67. So if I sell all my shares at that current price of $30.96, I will make $375. On YMAX, we earned 7 cents. I have a total of 758 shares. Therefore, my real price per share of $7.13 now becomes $7.06. And if I were to sell all 758 shares, I will make $1,181. On HUI, it is slightly up from last week. We earned 33 cents last week, and this week we earned 34 cents. And I have 116 shares, so I enter that into this sale right here. And that's going to lower that real price per share of $44.64 down to $44.30. Now this one I am still down because the current price is $30.51. Therefore, I would lose $1,599 if I did sell HUI at that current price. But I'm not selling. I am just going to continually to lower my real price per share, because eventually when Bitcoin decides to level off and start moving back up, so will Robinhood. And when Robinhood starts moving up, so will HUI. QDTE, we earn 22 cents and I have 155 shares. Therefore, my real price per share of $22.23 now becomes $22 even. And if I were to sell all my shares at that current price of $29.66, I would make $1,186. IWMY, we earned 11 cents. I have 551 shares, and my real price per share of $15.30 now becomes $15.19. Current closing price was $19.54. Therefore, if I had to sell all 551 shares of IWMY, I would make $2,397. QQQY, we earned 12 cents, and I have 551 shares. Therefore, my real price per share of $19.72 now becomes $19.59. And that current price of $22.10 means if I were to sell all my shares, I would make $1,382. WDTE, we're at 17 cents this week for the distribution, and I have 540 shares. Therefore, that real price per share of $25.79 now becomes $25.61, and that current price of $30.48 means if I were to sell all my shares at that price, I would make $2,629. Now, as you noticed, a lot of these have been positive, and we have more than exceeded the few losses that I was showing. But we got a couple more to take a look at, and we're looking at JEPQ. Now, JEPQ is a monthly pair, and we did not receive a distribution yet on JEPQ. So the current real price per share of $10.19 still stands. So therefore, if I had to sell all 55 shares at the current price of $58.04, I would make $2,631. A very nice gain on JEPQ. And last but not least is DIVO. Now DIVO, I did receive a distribution at the end of February for DIVO. It is a monthly payer, so this one only pays out per month. And they're paying out 18 cents this distribution. And I have a total of 12 shares. So that real price per share of $45.12 now becomes $44.93. So as you can see, from $45.12 down to $44.93, I'm dropping this number, and DIVO has actually been moving up because the current price of DIVO, you can see right here, is $46.60. And what did I buy my shares at? Well, I bought them at $45.30. So DIVO has been moving up since I purchased it, and I am earning those distributions each month. Therefore, that is lowering that average price per share, or my real price per share, which is what I like to call it. And since that is lowering this and the price of the stock is moving higher, that gap is increasing, which creates and gives me that downside protection. And that's how I play these high yield ETFs. I like my downside protection because I know how these high yield ETFs are. They're up 1 minute and then down the next, right? So therefore, I always want to lower my real price per share because I always want to plan for those days that it is down. And if I can continually to drop my real price per share each week, I'm giving myself my best shot at trying to stay up with any kind of price drops that we may see in these high yield ETFs. So now to get back to that summary page, just to see where we're currently at, we can hover right over this back to summary right here. And this is on each individual spreadsheet so that you can go right back to that summary. We click it and boom, there we are. Now we're not going to see any differences between the colors here because ULTY was the one that was the closest, right? Current market price being that $35.08 and we're at $35.19. So we are very close to flipping this one to green, but we didn't quite get there. So we are still down on CONY, ULTY, and WYMAX. And the rest of these are still green. And you can see our total gains for this week. And these are unrealized gains, right? I have not sold anything. But if I were to sell out of everything, all of these high yield ETFs, including the ones I've already sold out of, I would make $12,688.03. That is how much I would clear. And that would be selling all of my high yield ETFs, all 15 of them, from CONY to DIVO, right? So all of these would get sold off at that market price. Then I am looking at making and clearing $12,688.03, not including any taxes, of course. But I'm not selling my high yield ETFs. I'm being patient and I'm just going to ride it on out and wait to see if I can get the rest of these, at least the majority of them, paid off. Now it's going to take some time, but honestly, these here are taking care of themselves. I don't really have to watch them much. I just enter in my distributions each week, which then recalculates my real price per share here along this green and red cell line here. And eventually, my goal is to see this here pop up on each one of these, or at least the majority of them. I'd love to see it getting paid off. But as I said, that does take some time. So again, if you would like to get a copy of this spreadsheet so that you can find out what your real price per share is for each one of the high yield ETFs that you own, not just what I have, but what you have, then you can get a copy of this by joining my Discord. The link will be in the pinned comments and down in the description below. That will give you a link to get a copy of this spreadsheet. You'll also have the ability to see other positions that I get into, as I do post those in my Discord. I show when I get in them. I show when I get out of them. I show the receipts and how much I made for each one. So if you're interested in that, or just to get a copy of this spreadsheet, like I said, come on over, join the Discord. The link is in the pinned comments and the description below. And I believe this spreadsheet can benefit you greatly. So I think I'm going to wrap it up right there. If you don't mind, hit that subscribe button and smash the like button, as it would be much appreciated. And as always, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Please do your own due diligence before you get into any stock plays. And until next time, Legend out.